Hi everyone. Yes, I know it's been a few weeks since my last video. I've had a few people write to me and saying, "Hey, where are my videos?" And I can only apologize. As always, I've just been all over the place. Spent some time in Europe and then in the US, and then I'm back, and then I went back to the US. So it's been a bit crazy, but I think it's never a dull moment in our industry. That's for damn sure. So let's talk about a few things that are definitely going on. I was in Europe. I was at the Flame Gas Conference. Always an interesting time. Lots of interesting people to talk to. My overall impression is there's a lot of uncertainty in Europe. Europe really doesn't know which way things are going to go. There's been some demand destruction. Demand's gone down. Price is potentially going to go down. But we have had a very muddled energy policy by the EU, by the individual countries. Some of the grandiose plans of hydrogen and heat pumps and offshore wind, some of these are not working out as well as they expected. There seems to be a realization that always following the German lead for energy policy is not always the smartest thing. I think that some countries are definitely thinking that gas is going to be here for a while and they're definitely planning on it. We see a lot of discussion of gas coming through the southern corridor into the Balkans and those kind of places. Uncertainty what's going to happen if Russia comes back to the fray. We don't know. LNG from Russia continues at a massive rate. No one is really talking about that. So Russia is definitely not sanctioned on the LNG side. Pipelines may be, but definitely not on the LNG side. Europe is still taking a lot of American LNG. Once those storage things are full, with that's going to continue. Prices are going to drop. They think it's been a fairly mild winter. So if I was a European gas utility, I just don't know what to do. It's just really quite. I feel for you basically. Lots of uncertainty. What's happening in the US? Well, uncertainty seems to be the key word there as well. Definitely the euphoria of the Trump administration permitting stuff is there. That's been really good. I think that the support for the new administration is very strong in places like Texas and Louisiana. But within the industry and behind closed doors, I think people are definitely getting worried. They're getting worried that these tariffs and all are going to have an impact. I mean, literally, I was in a meeting with an EPC contractor when we heard that, oh, now Trump has just changed the steel tariff from 25 to 50%. It's obviously very, very hard to plan for investments. It's very hard to plan for project development. It's very hard to plan for offtake when all major components such as steel prices potentially could rise, 20, 30, 50%. A lot of the stuff that we use in our LNG world is not from the US. The steel. Whether the US can make that steel remains to be seen. Gulfstream LNG is looking at importing LNG modules from Italy, from Baker Hughes. We thought that was a safe choice, and I think it will be a safe choice. But in the end of the day, if there's going to be a European tariff, what does that really mean? There's just a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty should mean that people are sitting on their hands. What I'm surprised is the number of FIDs that are actually happening. People are not actually sitting on their hands. I think the projects that are quite far advanced, that were just waiting for the permits, waiting for the last minute approvals, are all blazing and going. And some of these are pretty big volume projects. If you look at the Tellurian, which is, I think, 10 plus million tons the first phase, CP2, which is 10 or 20 million tons, and some of the expansions that we're talking about, there could be a lot of American LNG coming along. I was actually at a conference in Houston early last week, and they asked me to present on the topic of, does the world need more American LNG? It's not an obvious answer. I think the world still does. And my rationale is very simple. American LNG remains the most flexible. American LNG has the potential to be the one of the cheapest in terms of, it's a cost plus, and US hub prices are staying quite low. But we also have the issue that American LNG the EPC costs have gone up quite dramatically. We're talking about 20, 30, 40% since the last round. We have that, and that uncertainty, the uncertainty over tariffs. So is American LNG going to be the most cost competitive? I sure hope so. I think that we all have to work hard to bring down the cost. But if all these mega projects are going to start building now, literally, there's going to be a run on the labor, there's going to be a run on resources, cranes, equipment, concrete, everything. I think that we're going to, in the short term, we're going to see quite a high cost for developing American LNG. I hope that by the time we start construction in 2 to 3 years from now, that costs have come back down. But in the meantime, yes, I think that uh, it is an open question. Does the world need more American LNG? My answer is that American LNG has opened up markets all over the world. Without American LNG, we'll still be in the dark days 20 years ago or 15 years ago, when there was only a handful of buyers and a handful of sellers. American LNG has opened up all of the Latin American market. I was talking to somebody about El Salvador being a big importer. I mean, obviously not a big importer, but importing LNG, and many other opening markets all over the Caribbean. There's been some assets trading hands in Jamaica and other places. So the Caribbean's interesting place, smaller volumes, but definitely more countries. And once they get into LNG, they tend to grow. Latin America, it'll be interesting to see if the Argentinian dreams actually happen. There's been a lot of failed hopes along the way. This time may be happening. I'm still not totally convinced whether the big floating LNG projects are going to make sense, especially once the pipelines to Brazil are back in order and Argentina can make probably a lot more money selling that Vaca Muerta gas to Brazil. But obviously, other people have decided that that investment is real and they're making headway on that. But yes, American LNG, it looks like the volumes are going to be quite dramatic coming in the next few years with all the new projects that have announced FIDs. What happens next? We are continuing to make progress on our permitting. We're doing quite well. We're hoping to transition to the application phase pretty soon. And then I think by the time we come online, there wouldn't be many new projects. But in the near term, I think we definitely will see a lot of new projects happening. Alaska, of course, is getting a lot of attention. Good luck to Glenfarne. I hope they can make it happen. I worked in Alaska many years ago. It was difficult then. They seem to have a lot more support now, and we never had administration support like they do. So, look, the stars are aligned. Can they bring the cost down? Are they going to have to pay a steel tariff for that 1,000 kilometer pipe, more than 1,000 kilometer pipe? Oops, that's going to cost a hell of a lot, because that pipe has to be put on braces. A lot of that has to be above the permafrost. So that's a lot of metal. Construction costs. Alaska is notoriously hard to find construction workers. Where they are going to come from? Maybe the administration gives them a break. Maybe they get a break on the steel. Maybe they can import labor. If that's the case, hey, maybe the economics can change. But good luck to them. I hope it can happen. Other projects that I think are looking to FID very soon. Commonwealth is going to probably FID very soon. Texas looks like it might FID towards the end of the year or so. That's what I've read. But I don't know. Again, I hope that's the case. Of course, CP2 is going to already FID. Lake Charles might FID. So there's a lot of interesting things happening in the States. I hope it's not overheated too much. There's now talk about, is there enough gas coming to the Gulf region? Is there going to be enough workers, the construction costs, etc.? And of course, the tariffs are. So I guess the key takeaway in all of this is uncertainty, uncertainty, uncertainty. But on the positive side, one of the things that I presented at this conference was energy addition, not energy transition. What does that mean? That we talk a lot about energy transition. We always say that it's going to happen. Maybe the data shows that we actually never transition. We just keep on adding on and on and on to the energy sources. We're still using a lot of biomass. We've been transitioning away from coal for 50 years. We still use more coal than ever before. We are transitioning away from oil, but still there's a lot of oil being used. Maybe oil will be the one that we see the most dramatic fall with the EVs, but it still hasn't manifested that way. And we keep on finding new demand. So again, I think I've said this before. In our forecast, we tend to overestimate supply and underestimate demand. Maybe the supply won't come online as fast as we can. Maybe it's only going to be the US and not much anywhere else. Maybe the Australian projects don't get online, the new ones. Maybe Mozambique never happens. These are all very uncertain. Canada maybe slows down again. Right now, Canada is making a lot of noise that they're going to take full advantage of the American uncertainty and build a lot of projects. I think the Canadians are getting very excited that their time may be finally coming. I think America should wake up and say, hey, if we don't get our own house in order, we're going to lose some of the market share to these newcomers. But I think that's maybe wishful thinking. So, but the demand is going to be, I think, surprise us. There's going to be demand all over the world. The data centers, I'm hearing data centers everywhere. I don't know if the world needs that many data centers, but everybody's talking about them. Some of them are already started happening. Some will happen down the road. I think that these other alternative energy sources we have talked about, hydrogen and ammonia and all that, that's just not happening at all at the pace everybody thinks it is. I think we're going to see the rise and now the fall of the hydrogen economy. That's just not, it just again yet again has proved that it's just not that easy to make it happen. So we'll be back to the fuels that we know. Solar, of course, is always exciting. There's a lot of solar additions. It's taking a big chunk of the energy's demand, but the intermittent nature of solar is difficult to manage, but batteries are getting cheaper, and that's always good. Wind, I think that we are realizing that wind is not that easy, especially offshore wind around the world. Places like Australia, they had big plans. Now it may not at all materialize. These things are costing a lot more. Permitting is very difficult. Power cables are difficult. So it's really only solar that has a bit of an upside, in my view, in most parts of the world. And we need to be producing more oil and gas. I look at what's happening in the UK, where they've pretty much shut down the entire upstream industry in the North Sea. I see very limited exploration happening in some places, but on the other hand, I see a bit of resurgence in Indonesia, a bit of excitement in some parts of Africa. But production, we need to have production dollars happen to continue producing gas. And if we don't are not successful in that, and we're not successful in some of the alternative fuels, we're going to see demand of gas continue for a long time. So again, kind of in a nutshell, beware of all the forecasts. I think we overestimate supply, underestimate demand. And then if the demand, if we are correct and we do overestimate supply and underestimate demand, then prices will go down, and that'll drive the invisible hand comes in and actually increases the demand again. So basically, I'm kind of rambling here on this episode of On My Mind. But the bottom line is we need American gas, we need more LNG projects, and let's try to bring those costs down, and let's get rid of uncertainties. Uncertainties are going to be the catchword of the year. Let's try to reduce that uncertainty as much as possible. Let's not have these tariffs. Let's be consistent. Let's be smart about these things. Thanks, everyone. Bye.